we talked a lot about Russell's just dynamic play in terms of triple doubles over the past 3 seasons you've been here. I mean, he's got an opportunity to get, I guess, 16 more rebounds to get a triple double tomorrow. What do you think about that opportunity? And if he has a chance to do it, like, are you okay with guys helping him out in doing that, or guys, conceding rebounds? How do you feel about that?
No, I don't think Russell's ever played that way. I think he's always focused on winning. He's got a unique ability because he's a guy that's been able to impact the game with his scoring, his rebounding, and his assists. But for me as a coach, the most important thing is, can we build off these last 2 games on the road and play well and play better and make some improvements and strides. So, just being around Russell, I know he's not wrapped up in all that stuff. He's more wrapped up in winning, and that's the most important thing to him. I think the most important thing to our team. So, again, it would be a great personal milestone. Certainly what we did last year was incredible. It would be another incredible milestone this year. But at the same point, it's not about that. It's about our team, and it's about winning.
What would that mean for him to do that within the context of this year's team? Because, last year it was a different team with different expectations, both internally. I mean, maybe not internally. Maybe the expectations are the same every year internally.
Right.
But externally, I think people viewed last year's team differently because you guys had lost Kevin, and Russell was kind of had this narrative all season of the triple-double. But this year it's kind of been more to the back burner in terms of, having these guys around him like Paul and Carmelo. Like, what would it mean this year as opposed to last year?
I just think it's different. What he does, and like I said, it doesn't make a difference who's playing with him. Whether it's him passing the ball and creating, generating assists, or his ability to rebound, those 2 things are always going to be constants with him because of his game. The scoring part of it probably is not the same numbers of scoring and the same number of shots that he's taken last year because he has different offensive players around him. But I think it speaks to what kind of fingerprints he has on games in a lot of different aspects. And, like I've always said, like the scoring part is the easy part on the triple-double stuff. It just is because he's going to be able to score. It's the other things he does that impacts winning. Rebounding helps us win. The assists get other people involved. So I think it speaks to him as a player more than anything else of how unique he is.
How much of a difference does it make when he gets that rebound, that defensive rebound, and is able to take off as opposed to somebody else? Because we saw it last night.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, it's big. I mean, it's like I did this with Noah and Horford in Florida. Like when those guys rebounded, they started the break. And anytime you have a point guard or a person that's a ball handler starting the break, and they're the first person that touched the ball off a rebound, it's really hard to get back in transition. And for Russell, for as great as a rebounder he is, those times that he gets it, it allows everybody to run, it allows the floor to be open, it allows for him to use his speed and his quickness and his athleticism, and then he gets his vision involved. But there's a huge advantage when he rebounds the ball and starts to break.
I don't mean this critically, but the dependence on Russell in terms of initiating offense, scoring this year, outside narrative again, going into this season, people might have thought that would be alleviated because you have Paul and Carmelo coming in, you have different guys coming off the bench like Raymond who can contribute more in that aspect. What have you thought about how you guys are dependent on Russell in terms of the offense this year and how much you've leaned on him to kind of initiate things?
Well, I think the first day of training camp, everybody was open-minded and willing to sacrifice to do what was best for the group. And I think that still, to this day, several months later, still remained the driving force with our team. I think part of the reason why Russell maybe early in the year struggled and wasn't maybe playing where he had maybe the previous year was, one, he missed some time in training camp. And I think, two, as a point guard, he takes a lot of responsibility incorporating new players. I mean, you could just see it. So I think for him, there was a figuring out process. Okay, I got Patrick Patterson, I got Raymond Felton, I got Paul George, I've got Carmelo Anthony, I've got these different players here, half our roster is different. And as a point guard, he's figuring out, okay, how do I make all this work together? Then I think we got to a point where offensively, we were not really a very, very good offensive team at all. I mean, we were probably the first month of the season like 24th or 25th. And there's a balance between him totally changing who he is at the detriment of our team. And there's also a balance of probably not having to shoulder so much of the load as he did a year ago. There's a balance between there. And I think as the season's gone on, he's worked really hard and has been really committed to find that balance. And I think because of that, I think our offensive numbers started to get better. There's been games where he hasn't taken a lot of shots. There's been games he's taken more shots. There's been games where Carmelo's gotten 22 or 25. There's been games where Paul's gotten 30-something. There's been games where Paul has had 15. It's all varies based on what the defense is giving you and how you're playing. So I still think as a point guard and as a great player, you're always going to have a reliability and dependability on him. But we have a reliability and dependability on Steven. We have a reliability and dependability on Carmelo and Paul. We have a dependability on Raymond, with the second unit. There's just certain things that those guys have to do as players to help our team. So I think it's totally different, but I do think, us being, as a team, reliable or needing to be reliable on Russ, we need that for us to become the best version of ourselves, just like we need the same thing at Paul, Steven, Carmelo, and our bench unit. Nobody's different. Everybody's got to be reliable and dependable.
Really, I know Memphis is young and in flux, but do you kind of have a sense, after having played them a few times this year and what you've seen recently, of like how they're going to try to play tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, you can't. We've got to go out and play good basketball. We're coming off 2 road games, and they've rested some guys, they've played some guys, but I think their system, their style, and how they want to play is pretty consistent. They're really good defensively with their hands. They've always been a physical, aggressive, disruptive defensive team. Offensively, they Gasol up top, moving and passing the ball. He's a unique center, poses a lot of different challenges and problems. And then I think also, their ability to offensive rebound. So regardless who's playing, that's kind of the things that they've done at a high level that we're going to have to guard against.
There's sort of been this dynamic with them and some of these other young teams sort of towards the bottom of the standings where they've really threatened teams and gone into tough places and won. What dynamic is at play for maybe a young team or something like that here down the stretch of the season?
Yeah, I mean, for any player, I think, in this league that gets the opportunity to play, you want to take full advantage of that. The one thing I respect about their team and is their guys play hard. I know that they've had different lineup changes, and last game, Gasol didn't play, and Evans has not played, and even before the trade deadline, he didn't play early, and different guys have played. But the one thing you have to say about them is they play hard, they play, and they compete, and they're an NBA team. And in this league, if you're not really playing at a high level with great focus and attention to detail, it's really hard to win. So for us, it's about how do we approach our last game, and do we try to build off of two road wins and get better and flush what's happened here in Miami and in Houston, and understand that this is the last game before we go again into the playoffs. And we want to be playing our best basketball and be going into the playoffs, coming off a good game.
How much does it help to have these games kind of be, for lack of a better term, do or die situation, or just have that playoff intensity?
Yeah, I don't know if our guys have ever viewed it that way. It's been more, I think, they've viewed just in terms of just the attention to detail, the focus, the concentration, the communication, the consistency. The resiliency to work through things. I think the one thing I was really impressed with the last 2 games has been, and I think you need this going forward, is Houston, we get off to a really, really good start. We're playing good basketball. We get up by 11, and then they kind of go on a run, take the lead at the half. We come out in that third quarter, we kind of make a run, we get the lead again, and then all of a sudden they make a run, and Chris Paul makes a 4-point play kind of to close the quarter. Then we're going into the 4th down. Like, that's what, to me, is the greatest form of competition. It's just not going to be smooth sailing. Same thing happened last night. We started the game 0 for 10, and we played pretty good defense, and they made shots. I think the score, we were down by 18, and it wasn't like we were playing like terrible, but I think the persistence and the concentration, the focus, and the understanding it's a 48-minute game, and we got to stick with what we're doing and not get frustrated, not get down, not get discouraged, but to battle and compete through those things. That's what we've got to be able to do. And I think that was encouraging. So I didn't look at it as like do or die. I looked at it more, I think our team looked at it more as, do we have the resiliency and the stamina to deal with 48 minutes of ebbs and flows and ups and downs and still be able to work and fight through those things?
Comparing them to some of the other teams you've coached, how mentally tough is this team maybe compared to the first team you had or even last year's team where it just all seemed like it was on Russell's shoulders?
I think it's a very, very mentally tough group we have. We have a mentally tough group. They're a group of guys that are veteran guys, they're experienced guys. But I think the one thing that's been different for all of them is they've had to channel mental toughness in a different way. Because a lot of times for Paul or for Carmelo or for Russell, for these guys, they're in different roles, you know, in large respect. And they're in different situations than they've been in the past. So we have to learn how to have a collective resiliency and perseverance as a group for the first time with us playing together and figuring out how to work through some of those difficult moments. Because, you know, you have like 3, 4, 5 possessions where it's not going well. How does the group regain momentum? And I think that's something you got to learn to do together as a group, because you got to go through those situations in order to learn how to get through them.
Is Alex going to be out tomorrow?
Excuse me?
Is Alex going to be out tomorrow?
Yes, it looks that way. We'll find out more tomorrow, but I'd say as of right now, he probably is going to be out unless there's some kind of, you know, he's in a concussion protocol, but I would not anticipate that he would be able to make a recovery in time for the game.
What did he do today, or did he do anything?
No, he didn't do anything. He's like all the steps he's got to go through. Generally, what they bring me up to speed on is when they say, okay, he is available to go on the court and do some running, some jogging, light shooting, and then they kind of give me, okay, but he passed that next step.
Is it disappointing when Alex, you know, the way, not necessarily his shooting hasn't been great in the past couple of games, but the way he's been playing in terms of just his all-around plays, is it disappointing to kind of lose him at this juncture?
Yeah, I feel bad for him. You know, somebody else would step up. I give Terrence a lot of credit for coming in and playing well when he was called upon in the second half. But Alex has done a really, really good job. He said, to your point, didn't shoot the ball particularly well in Houston. He did make a big shot to give us momentum going into the game against Miami when we were down. And for him, you want him out there, you know, because he's been through a lot this year. Training camp, injuries, battle, but I think he's gotten himself to a place right now where he's played really good basketball.
Is it affirming for you of your philosophy that you have so much experience invested in Terrence and Josh throughout the course of the season that they, you know, that you feel confident using those guys without him?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens sometimes, you know, during the course of the season is, you know, if you just go into the season and say, okay, these are the 8 or 9 guys we're going to play, so many things can happen. And like I said, you know, Josh hadn't played for a while, but he was in the rotation for a period of time and came in and gave us good minutes against Golden State. You know, Terrence, you know, last couple of games hasn't been in the rotation, but all of a sudden, you know, Alex goes down and he knocks down a big 3 at the corner. So you want to keep all these guys engaged. They're all good players. They're good guys. They're good team players. They all are unselfish. They all understand there's a level of sacrifice you have to give up for the team. But the biggest thing is you want to keep yourself ready to play. And I think as a coaching staff, we have a job and a responsibility to keep these guys engaged. You know, and sometimes it may not be always in the rotation, but it may be like on a day like today where guys are out of the rotation and working with them and helping them and making a commitment to help them grow.
Billy, relative to a few games leading up to your last 2 where Carmelo and Paul were not hitting 3-point shots.
Right.
And then they have the last couple of games relative to the previous ones. Why does that change? And when they hit those shots, when they are sunk, and what's it change the mentality or kind of how it's going to go that night when they're hitting shots like that?
Well, I mean, I think for both those guys, they've been around for so long and they've played and they've been such elite scorers for so long. I don't know any player that's ever not gone through a slump in his career. The biggest thing is you go through those situations where you're not shooting the ball particularly well, they usually have a pretty good strategy to get themselves out. And I think it probably speaks to their work ethic and what they've done to try to get themselves maybe back to shooting the ball at the level and the standards they've had for most of their career. So it's really them and the time and effort they put in, the concentration and focus they put into it. But again, because they've gone through this before, they know how to kind of work it. And I'm not saying neither one of them's gone through, you know, long shooting slumps. I mean, Carmelo's going to go down as one of the greatest scorers of all time in the game. So those are few and far between. But he's probably had some games where he didn't shoot the ball particularly well, and he's got to figure out a way to work out of it. I think Paul's mentioned that this throughout his career has happened sometimes, but he's worked his way through it. And I think it speaks to what I was saying a little bit earlier about, you know, our team, you know, the competitive part of when it's not going well, how you fight through that stuff. And these guys have probably learned how to fight through some of that individually with their shooting. and we've had to learn how to collectively fight through some of those things as a team.
Anybody else?